Hello, I'm BN Fox. This is my channel, I Hate Rock Music. Thanks for tuning in again. And again, I appreciate the people that watch. I really appreciate the people that comment. And I really appreciate the people that have subscribed. I don't have that many subscribers, but I get a pretty decent amount of views on a lot of things. And I love the comments. I particularly love the comments where they're, they're thankful that hear this stuff and that I recommend it and they check it out and they love it. And for me, that's what it's all about. Other than that I just love shop talk. I've been a record collector for over 50 years, and I love this stuff. I grew up in this era. But today's another one that a lot of collectors certainly out there are familiar with, and that's the band Thunder and Roses. And they came out of Philadelphia, 1969, and power trio: Chris Bond on guitar and vocals, Tom Schaefer on bass, and George Emme on drums. And great power trio record. It starts off with White Lace and Strange, which of course Nirvana did their early days. So great obscure cover that Nirvana picked out, but I guess there's a lot of renewed interest in Thunder and Roses once that came out. But and there's also a great version of Red House on here. So they were obviously, as they said themselves in interviews, definitely influenced by Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Cream and Jimi Hendrix. And I hear that story over and over and over again about a lot of these musicians who were blown away by those bands and wanted to get in on it. And the name comes from a science fiction book that Chris Bond was reading, an astounding science fiction anthology, and so that's where they came up with the name. And then the album was King of the Black Sunrise, which is a pretty foreboding title, but you get what they intended. It was recorded at Sigma Sound, so it's recorded pretty well by a guy named Joe Tarcia. And Chris Bond did a lot of great overdubs on the record, which kind of gives it a little more psychedelic feel. So the basic tracks sound more like your classic heavy power trio, but then you add the overdubs and it gets kind of a Hendrixy psychedelic effect. And oddly enough, they wanted White Lace and Strange to be the single, but the label, United Artists, that signed them pretty quick. In fact, they were still in rehearsals when United Artists signed them, so I assume there's some kind of demo out there. But they picked the song Country Life to be the single, which is an odd song on the album, more of like a country ballad, and so weird that the label thought, I guess, that it was more accessible than the rest of the stuff on the record. But unfortunate choice. But they're all band also pretty tight, and apparently they rehearse 6 days a week, so they were definitely serious about what they were doing. And they were scheduled to play Woodstock, and then they got bumped by Mountain. So that would have been quite the exposure if they'd played at Woodstock, and then we'd probably have a live recording of them, which would have been awesome. But having the Woodstock gig f- fall through, and then the fact that they just didn't get to gig that much, and so the band broke up in 1969, and it was done. And Chris Bond actually went on, was very successful as a producer, worked with Hall and Oates for years of all things, and also transitioned from a man to a woman. So the band mentions the fact that all the money he got from the sales of Thunder and Roses, which probably wasn't that much, got put into an operation. So an interesting side story to this whole thing. And then I also gleaned from doing some research on the band that there's some unreleased material, and I'm kind of surprised that if it's out there, um, somebody hasn't glammed onto it and released it. It purportedly is significantly better than what's on the Thunder and Roses album, King of the Black Sunrise, and that would be something to hear. And that makes sense if they recorded that album in 1969. If they put out another album in 1970, I'm sure they would have developed more. So it'd be a real treat to hear what they intended for the second album. So that's all I have to say about Thunder and Roses. Once again, a record I got in cutouts. I knew right away that it was going to be heavy. Three guys, guitar, bass, and drums, The cover is kind of peculiar, and it was a great score. And Cutout's another one that I probably got for about 44 cents. Just looked at the cover and knew I was in for something good. I didn't really expect it to be as good as it is. And then yeah, I have to say, again, um, they're not a first tier band, they're a second tier band, but they definitely had everything going for them and had the potential to be a first tier band. But that said, it's a really satisfying record. It's a great early, 1969 power trio, and so it has all kinds of charms. And I really like a lot of these bands who kind of have one foot in psychedelia and one foot, in 60s psychedelia and one foot in 70s hard rock. So it's a good mixture for me, and this album delivers. And except for Country Life, most of it's pretty punchy, with a lot of extended guitar work, and he's definitely a solid guitar player and a pretty decent singer too. So it's a real gem. It's one of those records, if you really like that late 60s, early 70s sound as much as I do, this one's a real stunner. So check it out. Links below as usual. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching my channel.